Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPL Hints, here to discuss best no-Haaland draft options ahead of Gameweek 13. As always, if you're able to like, share and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. So look at the fixtures ahead and then basically map out a team without Haaland. And put my hands up, I've had Haaland through thick and thin, but the reality is, if you look at his stats as a whole, from game week 6 in particular, it's literally been blank after blank. He's had a return in game week 9 against Southampton with a goal without any bonus points, and then also against Brighton as well, albeit he picked up a yellow card as well. But on the whole, for a player that's 15 million and a bit, having just a couple of returns in the space of 7 game weeks is completely unacceptable. So I want to basically show, even for those that aren't going to activate the wild card or haven't got the wild card, that there is a way to basically have a balanced no Haaland draft. And let's just say that in the event that he automatically hits the ground running, that we'll have a budget buffer in place as well, so that we can buy him back within a game week. And you look at the fixtures ahead in particular, I think you got Liverpool, that's going to be a super tricky fixture. Forest at home, okay, they've kind of gone off the boil a bit, but might be tricky to some extent. Crystal Palace away, they've not the same team as last season, but they're kind of like picking up pace eventually. United at home, to be fair, has been a relatively easy fixture for them of late, but it's a derby, new manager, things could change, and you've got Aston Villa away. So you could argue that in the next 4 or 5 game weeks, it's not the best run as a whole. So just with that in mind, I want to just go back to the fixtures that we've got at hand for the festive fixture rush. Some teams have already had a positive turn in fixtures, and some teams are about to have that positive turn. So with Arsenal in particular, I'd say it's a very good run. You need to get defensive and attacking Arsenal cover. But even if you didn't have a no Haaland draft, Aston Villa tapping into some key assets there as well makes sense. Bournemouth, who have had some tricky fixtures, seem to be having a good turn as well. Brentford, their fixtures are getting trickier, so might be potential time to get rid of Mbumo and Flecken if you've already got them. Brighton, golden run of fixtures. João Pedro is back. Logic to factor them in. Chelsea, good run of fixtures for the festive period. Palace, it gets trickier. Everton, it gets trickier. Fulham, it's getting trickier. Ipswich, green block run of games ahead. Leicester, fairly mixed. Liverpool, on paper, it does get trickier in the immediate games, but then good run of games ahead. Man City, I'd say, if I'm being honest, it's mixed, if not a bit tricky. United, I'd say it is mixed, but then you've got Everton, Forest, and Bournemouth in 3 of the next 5. Newcastle, I'd say that's quite mixed. Forest, it's definitely trickier than what they had before. Southampton, it's super tricky. Spurs, I'd say it's mixed. West Ham, it's about to take a turn for the better. And then Wolves, they've already hit their golden run of games, and no doubt their players have already benefited with the matches that they've had, albeit they're not winning every match as of yet. So on to the players now in this no Haaland draft. Let's just look at the trending players first and foremost. So transfers in by round. We can see João Pedro, 5.5 million, got that goal against Man City. I think he's definitely worth considering. And then I definitely want some sort of Arsenal defensive cover, but I think the way to unlock funds definitely would be David Raya in He Comes. And also need a cheap goalkeeper to basically back him up as well. So I think Fabianski is no longer 4.0. I'm trying to look for him. There he is, 4.1. And in terms of the actual forwards, so if I'm not going to have Haaland, I want in-form forwards who have basically a generous run of games as well. Is it too much to ask? I don't think it is. You got Cunha, 6.9, João Pedro, 5.6. And then there's really a choice between Jackson or Isak. Got Watkins as well at 9.0. The issue with Watkins, I wouldn't say he's really informed at one goal in the past 4. With Isak, at the time of recording, he's on a good run of scoring, so could potentially shoehorn him in. If I get Jackson, I haven't got the potential to get Palmer, might be doubling up there, so that might be a bit tricky, but it's really choice from my opinion between Isak and Jackson. But let's try and have Jackson for now and see what else we can do. So far, that's 65.4 million to go with 9 players still left. Going to go back on the defenders now. There aren't really a lot of standout defenders at this moment in time. So I think Mazraoui, definitely I would consider him because the fixtures, albeit they're mixed, there is some upside and a bit of rotation can be done as well. Got Konate of Liverpool. So with Liverpool not really keeping clean sheets, minutes as a whole are surprisingly safe, but that's something that I could potentially consider. I think Lewis Hall at 4.4 million, definitely an option as a rotating pair perhaps. So in comes Lewis Hall. So just looking at what we've got now, 56.4 million left with 7 to go. Let's just get the heavy hitters in now. So midfielders, going to get in Saka, of course, and have Mohamed Salah, going to have Bruno Fernandes, and let's push it and get Cole Palmer as well. So that leaves me with 14.4 million in the bank with 3 players still to pick. So going to need to just be a bit careful here. Let's just go to the cheaper options. So looking at the best 5.5 or less play, got Gomez, João Gomez of Wolves, interestingly enough, has had a couple of double-digit hauls in the past 3 matches and good run of fixtures. Could be a placeholder option for me, but got Morgan Rogers. To be fair, something with him is X-Men's as a whole are good in that price category, but the form is somewhat mixed. So that is something that is worth considering. Really, it's quite limited. We got this Arsenal rising star as well, but yeah, it's not going to get much minutes there. So I'm going to try and have, just looking at João Gomez's X-Mins, it's relatively safe. Just going to have him as a placeholder for now, but ideally I'd want Rogers. So just looking at how the team is right now, I want to have that. Well, I wanted funds at hand as well in the event I was going to shift my team around without having Haaland. The plan basically is that obviously next game week don't have Haaland, and you kind of want to hope to trying to get away without having him for a while, for a few games at least, and then build up your buffer essentially. So looking at the 4-point-odd players, again, all of these players have difficult games. And Kirkes, to be fair, the fixtures are about to turn for him. So I think Kirkes, but then Bournemouth aren't really keeping clean sheets. It really is slim pickings for budget defenders this season. So let's just have Kirkes. Let's just assume he's a sub 5. Of course, you got Ait Nouri. Let's restore him as well. 4.7. 0.4 million in the bank. So in this instance, heavy midfield, playing a 3-4-3 formation, and then got enough there in defence to keep you going. I think the biggest weakness is there are no Man City players at all. And I know Man City have gone through their worst run of form in, well, probably a decade. And it's Pep Guardiola's worst ever form as an elite level manager. So that is a weakness, but I'd say the opportunity here clearly is that there is a good balance of all of the big hitters in all the other teams, and it is a very balanced team. In terms of the threat as well, that in this no-Haaland draft, let's just call it out, that if Haaland basically hits the ground running and these players don't, that's going to really mess up the overall ranked situation, regardless of how high you're ranked. But I personally think that if you still have the wild card, you're not doing too well at the moment. You've really got nothing to lose in pushing for this no-Haaland draft. Has it been too late by missing out on the blank in the Tottenham match and the Brighton match? I'd say not. To hear the Brighton one wasn't even a blank. He scored in that match, but it's just getting so much more value without Haaland, as we can see here. If I look at the alternative players now, let's just say I didn't have Nicholas Jackson. I'd certainly want to consider Isak. So just go to forwards and see what else we can do. So he's literally the only other forward I'd consider. Welbeck is now, I'd say he's run his race with João Pedro back. Havertz, Heung-min's issue could be a problem in the future. So 0.2 million to unlock. And let's just say we get rid of Kirkes and look for an even cheaper defender. 4.2 million. Got Mikalenko. Is he still starting? He is, but the fixtures are getting trickier for Everton. We did say Ipswich's fixtures, to be fair. They do pick up, albeit you really wouldn't want to start an Ipswich defender. Cameron Burgess, got O'Shea as well. It's been resolute for Mins. Let's just get O'Shea in. So in this instance, O'Shea is the sub 3, Gomez is the sub 2, and then you'll literally be rotating between one of Aït-Nouri or Mazraoui, Pedro Porro. I think it makes sense not to have Gabriel or Saliba, just save the extra money and get David Raya in goal. Would I get rotating goalkeepers? Probably not. Just stick with David Raya as that go-to pick. And then with Fabianski, just got in there, even if his minutes eventually do come to a halt. But yeah, I think Cunha absolutely must. Just seems like a cheat code right now for the amount of points he's had. He wasn't really doing too well at the start, but then you look at his last blanks. Blanked against Man City makes sense. Blanked against Liverpool makes sense as well. Blanked against Newcastle. Blanked against an informed Nottingham Forest in game week 3, but literally since then he's just been scoring. So with him, 7 goals, 3 assists in 12 games, absolutely get him. It's not too late. João Pedro, big difference with him since he's come back. Early adopters have benefited massively with him. Wasn't expecting a double-digit haul against Brighton. Proved his worth against Bournemouth. In my case, had Danny Welbeck, so seemed like a sideways move initially. But I've got 3 free transfers at hand, so haven't got a wild card anymore. And I would certainly consider getting him. And look, he had a really great start. Injury, and then minutes obviously went, and he's hit the ground running. So I think he's adapted quite quickly. Isak, a lot of upside with him. So an alternative option, if you weren't going to go for Jackson, I am looking at which Man City player would I want to get in this moment in time. If I'm being brutally honest, I really can't justify a Rico Lewis or a Gvardiol at this moment in time. De Bruyne just coming back from injury, got none of the midfielders. Foden, just terrible form in the Premier League this season. Even if his minutes were limited a fair bit, but look at that, last 4 games, 4 blanks. It's just not working at all. And Haaland, if Haaland's blanking, all the other Man City players are blanking. Just doesn't make sense at all to have them. If you really pushed me and said, look, pick one player, I would say, you know what? I know they've got some tricky games. he is a rotation risk. Somehow get Rico Lewis in. I don't know, flip out Hall for Lewis. I don't think I couldn't even justify that. I really couldn't. So with that said, like Xhaka, must have without Haaland, Palmer, Mohamed Salah, Fernandes, those four you're going to get. That's why you've basically would be willing to sell Haaland. And in fairness to my own draft, I could easily stretch to one of Palmer. I could even get both if I sold Haaland as well, but I really want to tap into Pedro and Cunha with the fixtures that they've got as well. So that's where my thinking is. And they're already bandwagon players. I think Cunha more so than João Pedro. So that is where the thinking is at. Just looking at any final trending players that I might have missed out on for defenders. Yeah, Gabriel, no need, because you've got Raya, Virgil van Dijk. Can't really justify. If you really wanted a Liverpool defender, you go to Konate. Yeah, not Aina, with the fixtures getting trickier for Forest. Maddison, to be fair, 7.5 million, but you'd effectively have to give up one of Cunha, Pedro, Isak. Is it worth it to get rid of one of them for Maddison? I couldn't really justify that. His minutes have been an issue of late as well, to be fair. Fitness has been an issue as well. Mitoma, 6.4 million for Brighton instead of João Pedro. I think that's another alternative, but I think João Pedro offers more upside. I think he's on penalties as well. And Bumo, I think his fixtures are turning, so wouldn't really justify him. Smith Rowe, X-Nin's issue. It really is a choice with this draft between whether you want Nicholas Jackson or Isak, essentially. I would personally argue if you've got Palmer in this no-Haaland wildcard draft, then you go for Isak. And it just offers more balance. You don't want too many triple ups and double ups. Of course, I've got triple Wolves here. Gomez is always going to be that sub 2. You wouldn't really want to start him at all with these players. Yeah, you've got Ait-Nouri and you've also got Cunha. That's really the only double up here. But then, as a whole, Pedro Porro, you haven't got them for the clean sheets. Ait-Nouri, you haven't got them for the clean sheets either. And it's not really been a clean sheets season for premium or budget defenders. So, yeah, there you have it. That is what my thinking is for a no-Haaland draft. And as mentioned, I don't have a wild card. You may not have a wild card. But the whole point of this is that if you've even got 2 free transfers, you can experiment with getting rid of Haaland and basically see what you could effectively come up with. And there are so many options that are available, albeit it's more limited when you look at the upcoming upcoming fixtures and factor in the form as a whole for the players ahead. The key thing here is that with Haaland, if he's the price that he's at, he's not scoring. Other players who are slightly less are. You've got to really factor it in. What I was trying to also do is demonstrate that you could even have a situation whereby have a lot of money in the bank by not having one of these premiums. I'm thinking, who could I potentially downsize? Really, I'd want Saka, Palmer, Mohamed Salah, and Bruno Fernandes, but you could cheapen out the defense a bit more. You could probably get one of, let's just get rid of Isak for argument's sake and look at one of the even cheaper forwards. Let's just say go for double up on Brighton, get Danny Welbeck if you really wanted to. You've got 2.9 million in the bank, so that gives you money to shift around if you really wanted to. Or you could go for Rory Delap, who is showing a bit of form. 2.9 million there as well. So there you have it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Is this a balanced team without Haaland? Is there upside not having Haaland? Is it too late to go for a no-Haaland draft? And as always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Take care, and all the best.